Have you ever wondered how a country can dissolve almost overnight? How unity turns into disarray? Today, we're peeling back the layers of time to understand one such pivotal event, the breakup of Yugoslavia. This tale of transformation is far from simple. It's a complex weave of historical, political, and cultural factors that, together, led to the dissolution of a unified nation. But why is it important to understand? Well, it's because history teaches us, and it shapes our present and our future. Today we dive into the chronological events that led to the breakup of Yugoslavia. Before we delve into the breakup, we need to understand Yugoslavia as a whole. Born out of the ashes of World War I, Yugoslavia was a melting pot of diverse ethnic groups, each with their own distinct cultures and languages. From the Slovenes in the north to the Albanians in the south, from the Serbs in the east to the Croats in the west, this was a country stitched together by the threads of shared history and common struggle. During the Cold War, Yugoslavia held a unique position, steering clear of both the NATO and the Warsaw Pact, carving its own path under the leadership of Josip Broz Tito. It stayed non-aligned, striking a delicate balance between the East and the West. Yet beneath this mosaic of cultures and ideologies, fault lines were emerging. This diverse and complex nation, however, was not destined to last. The first signs of trouble began to emerge in the 1980s. A decade marked by economic instability, burgeoning nationalism, and a significant power vacuum with the passing of Yugoslavia's longtime leader, Josip Broz Tito. Let's take a step back and delve into the economic crisis of the 1980s. Yugoslavia was in the grip of a severe financial downturn. The country was straddled with foreign debt that ran into billions of dollars, leading to rampant inflation and high unemployment rates. The economic situation was so dire that it led to food shortages, resulting in public discontent and widespread protests. In the midst of this economic turmoil, nationalism began to rear its head. The various ethnic groups that made up Yugoslavia, including the Serbs, Croats, Bosniaks, Slovenes, Macedonians, and Kosovars, started to assert their national identities more prominently. They began to question the idea of a unified Yugoslavia. This rise in nationalism was further fueled by the grievances over perceived economic and political inequalities among the republics. Now let's touch on the death of Josip Broz Tito. Since the end of World War II, Tito had been the glue that held the diverse republics together under the banner of brotherhood and unity. His leadership style, which balanced the interests of the different republics, had kept the ethnic tensions at bay. However, his death in 1980 left a power vacuum that the existing political structure struggled to fill. The absence of a strong leader led to an increase in regional autonomy, which in turn gave momentum to the nationalist movements. This decade-long crisis set the stage for the disintegration of Yugoslavia. The economic hardships, the increasing nationalist sentiments, and the lack of a strong unifying figure like Tito created a volatile mix. A mix that was ready to explode at the slightest trigger, and explode it did. The 1980s ended with Yugoslavia on the brink of disintegration. The country was a tinderbox, ready to ignite at the slightest spark. The unity and brotherhood that once held the country together began to unravel. These factors set the stage for the turbulent decade to come. The 1990s arrived with a wave of change that would redefine the map of Europe. As we delve deeper into the story of Yugoslavia, we find ourselves at the brink of the decade that was marked by dramatic transformations. The winds of change were blowing, and they carried with them the seeds of disunity that had been sown in the fertile grounds of Yugoslavia. Slovenia and Croatia, two of the 6 republics, were the first to feel the pull of independence. The year was 1991, and the desire for sovereignty had reached a boiling point. Slovenia declared independence in June, and Croatia followed suit shortly after. This was a bold move, a direct challenge to the unity of Yugoslavia, and it didn't go unanswered. The Yugoslav People's Army, loyal to the idea of a unified Yugoslavia, responded with force. The Slovenian War lasted for 10 days, a brief but intense conflict that ended with Slovenia successfully securing its independence. Croatia, however, wasn't as fortunate. The Croatian War of Independence, or as some might call it, the Serbo-Croatian War, was a brutal and protracted conflict that lasted for 4 long years. The international community watched with bated breath as the situation unfolded. There were attempts at mediation, peace talks brokered by the European Economic Community, now known as the European Union. But the fighting only intensified. The United Nations intervened, deploying peacekeeping forces in an attempt to halt the violence, but the conflict raged on. And so, the stage was set for the disintegration of Yugoslavia. The unity that had been carefully crafted and nurtured was now being torn apart, piece by piece. The secession of Slovenia and Croatia marked the beginning of the end, a sign of the tumultuous times that were to come. The map of Europe was being redrawn, and the once mighty federation was now on the brink of collapse. But the story doesn't end here. There were still more chapters to be written, more conflicts to be fought, more lives to be forever changed. But this was just the beginning of a long and bloody breakup. In 1992, the situation escalated into what would become one of the darkest chapters in European history. As the chaos of Yugoslavia's breakup continued, the Bosnian War erupted. This was not just a simple clash of armies, it was a brutal and tragic conflict marked by ethnic cleansing, a term that sent shivers down the spines of many. Ethnic cleansing, to put it plainly, was the systematic removal or murder of a particular ethnic group in a region to make it ethnically homogeneous. It was a chilling throwback to the atrocities of World War II, a stark reminder of the depths humanity could sink to when driven by hatred and fear. In Bosnia, the primary victims of this ethnic cleansing were Bosniaks, who were mostly Muslims. The Bosnian Serbs, backed by the Serb-dominated Yugoslav army, aimed to create ethnically pure territories. They launched a campaign of terror that included mass murders, forced displacements, and concentration camps. Then came the Srebrenica massacre in July 1995. It was Europe's worst atrocity since World War II. Over a span of just a few days, more than 8,000 Bosniak men and boys were systematically murdered by Bosnian Serb forces. The United Nations had declared Srebrenica a safe area, but they did little to protect the town when the Serb forces descended upon it. The Srebrenica massacre was a chilling climax to the ethnic cleansing that had been taking place throughout the Bosnian War. It was a stark reminder of the horrors of war, the kind of horror that no amount of time can erase from the memory of those who witnessed it, those who survived it, and those who lost their loved ones to it. The Bosnian War, the ethnic cleansing, the Srebrenica massacre, these were not just historical events. They were a testament to the human capacity for violence and cruelty when fueled by ethnic hatred and political ambition. The horrors of war were on full display and the world was watching. By the late 1990s, the concept of Yugoslavia was all but a memory. The dissolution of Yugoslavia was in full swing, and the world watched with bated breath as the once unified nation splintered into several independent countries. The strife and conflict that had consumed the region reached its climax when the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, or NATO, intervened in 1999. Their involvement was prompted by escalating conflicts and gross human rights violations, particularly in Kosovo. Here, tensions between the Serbian police and the Kosovo Liberation Army had escalated into full-scale war, leading to the displacement of thousands and the loss of countless lives. NATO's intervention, however, was not without controversy. Some viewed it as a necessary step to halt further atrocities, while others saw it as an overreach of Western powers into the affairs of a sovereign nation. Regardless of perspective, NATO's air campaign marked a turning point in the Yugoslav wars, leading to a ceasefire and the eventual withdrawal of Serbian forces from Kosovo. The fall of Slobodan Milosevic, the president of Yugoslavia, followed soon after. Accused of war crimes and crimes against humanity, Milosevic's reign ended in 2000. His arrest and subsequent trial at The Hague marked a significant milestone on the road to justice for the victims of the Yugoslav wars. By 2006, the final vestiges of the Yugoslav Federation disappeared as Montenegro and Serbia declared their independence. This marked the end of Yugoslavia, a country that had once spanned a diverse array of ethnicities, languages, and religions, now divided into 7 independent nations: Slovenia, Croatia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Macedonia, Montenegro, Serbia, and Kosovo. In less than a decade, a nation had dissolved, and a new era had begun. The end of Yugoslavia was a complex and tumultuous period, a stark reminder of the fragility of national unity in the face of ethnic tensions and political unrest. It was a chapter in history that left a profound impact on the world stage, shaping the geopolitical landscape of southeastern Europe as we know it today. The scars of war are long-lasting, and the aftermath of the Yugoslav wars was no exception. In the wake of the war, the wheels of justice began to turn, albeit slowly. The International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia was established by the United Nations in 1993. Its mandate was to prosecute serious crimes committed during the Yugoslav wars and to try their perpetrators. The tribunal indicted 161 individuals, including heads of state, generals, and politicians. These trials were a critical step towards justice, but they also served as a stark reminder of the atrocities committed. But as the trials unfolded, a humanitarian crisis was brewing. The war had displaced millions, creating one of the most significant refugee crises in European history. People were uprooted from their homes, their lives thrown into disarray. Many sought refuge in neighboring countries, while others were forced to navigate a life in their war-torn homeland. As the dust settled, the enduring tensions in the region began to surface. Ethno-nationalism, the very spark that ignited the war, continued to smolder. The new nations that emerged from the ashes of Yugoslavia were marred by the same ethnic divisions that led to its downfall. The tensions were, and continue to be, palpable. In Bosnia and Herzegovina, for instance, the country is still divided along ethnic lines. The economic impact of the war was also profound. The destruction of infrastructure, loss of lives, and displacement of people led to an economic downturn that the region is still grappling with. Unemployment rates soared and economies shrunk as the countries struggled to rebuild themselves from the rubble. The legacy of Yugoslavia's breakup is one that still resonates today. The echoes of the past are still heard in the political discourse, in the economic struggles, and in the enduring tensions. The aftermath of the Yugoslav wars serves as a stark reminder of the devastating consequences of ethno-nationalism and conflict. So, what can we take away from the breakup of Yugoslavia? The disintegration of Yugoslavia was a complex process, fueled by a blend of political, ethnic, and economic factors. It started with the seeds of dissension sown during the reign of Josip Broz Tito, who managed to keep the country's diverse ethnic groups united under a common Yugoslav identity. But after his death, the unity began to crumble, leading to the beginnings of a breakup. The spark that ignited the powder keg was the rise of nationalism, which led to the Bosnian War and the horrific ethnic cleansing. This period was marked by unimaginable atrocities and human rights abuses, serving as a stark reminder of the dark side of human nature when fueled by hatred and division. The end of Yugoslavia was not just the dissolution of a country, but a traumatic period that left deep scars on its people, scars that are still healing today. The aftermath was marked by the establishment of new independent nations, each with its own challenges and struggles. The story of Yugoslavia's breakup is a stark reminder of how quickly a seemingly stable nation can fall into chaos when unity is replaced by division. It's a lesson in the fragility of nations and the destructive power of division, and it underscores the importance of understanding this complex and tragic period in history. The story of Yugoslavia's breakup is a stark reminder of the fragility of nations and the destructive power of division.